Hey guys, one of the most important questions that I get sitting in the CFO seat for a lot of Amazon and e commerce sellers is Tyler, what's the one thing I need to focus on to improve, increase my sales? How do I make sales better? How do I make sales better and more efficiently? Second question that I get often that I'm like, well, I don't really know because I'm finance boy. I'm not sure that I have the answer to that is really, Tyler, I need some to dos. What are the 2 to 3 things that if I had to focus on them, they would move the needle this week? Well, guys, that's the topic of today's episode of Return on Podcast with me, Tyler Jeffcoat. And to have that discussion, I needed to bring in a real expert when it comes to driving Amazon performance, making Amazon sales better, and maximizing the profitability of your Amazon channel. And of course, no better guy to bring on for that discussion than Stephen Pope of My Amazon Guy. Stephen and I have history. We actually started our companies about the same time, which you'll hear us laugh about here in a couple minutes. And I just respect the guy's acumen, smart guy, really has an interesting take. I don't even agree with all of his takes, but a lot of what he says makes a ton of sense to me. Hope you enjoy this interview with Stephen Pope of My Amazon Guy. It's time to maximize profitability and cash flow. It's time to learn habits and hacks from the best e-com CEOs. It's time for Return on Podcast with me, Tyler Jeffcoat. All right, guys, welcome to Return on Podcast. Today, you guys may have seen, it's funny, Stephen, you and I were just talking about this, and it reminded me, it was like 2018. It was not only the first time I met you, but it was the first time we recorded content together, probably situated similar to how we are right now. Both of us had a little bit more hair, but not much. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Tyler. It's good to see you. I met you at a conference over in Prosper. It's funny, we had to go to the West Coast to meet each other and then come back to the East here down in the Atlanta area. But yeah, so I met you right before I got laid off. Then I got laid off, and then I started a business, and you started a business, and then we went to TiStar in Norcross, Georgia, had a lunch and started talking about our visions and our plans, and one thing led to another, and we both have our own booming empires now. So it's been great to see your growth and grow from a distance.
Yeah, likewise, man. Yeah, so again, inside baseball here. Stephen and I were both what you would call shit canned. Basically, we got canned. We were doing a job. We didn't get to do that job anymore. I was actually a partner in a prior business that it was time for me to go, and so they were like, "Bye, get out of here." And then I meet Pope a few months later, and he's actually you were running a successful P&L for a large brand, but they just didn't need you. He was less canned. I was more canned. But yeah, either way, we both found ourselves.
I grew him from $200K a month when I joined to almost $1 million per month over the course of 18 months. And then their business model got a little shaky. They got a little scared of some changes in the Amazon space and said, "Hey, Steven, here's a 3-month severance. See ya." And I'm like, gosh, dang it. I'm a 30-year-old dude making $200K. Who's going to hire me? And there was a 40-hour time period where I was like, did I peak? Did I peak at 30? And I was like, oh shit. Like that is a really harsh thought to think at 30 years old. And I was like, damn it, no, I didn't peak. I'm just getting started. I'll hire myself. And that's what I did. And it still took a long time to burn my ships to like go in on the agency thing, but I had dipped my toes in like consulting for 5 years and side hustled that. And so I knew what I was getting into, and I was like, oh man, this is going to be ugly. This is going to be so much work. It's not hashtag passive income, which is what I signed up for when I tried to sell on Amazon.
Right.
But it worked out.
Yeah. Listen, I saw that YouTube ad also that was like passive free income, and I don't know, man, I didn't find it as well. This seems to be work on the extreme. But Stephen, your business has evolved quite a bit. It's been always gratifying to kind of follow your journey. I mean, you're just leading this monster agency, My Amazon Guy. You guys are still, I think, focused on helping Amazon brands grow. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. And so we manage about $1 billion of Amazon sales with 400 brands.
Wow, that's amazing. So you think about it, like, and I have to think about that in aggregate as well. Like we're probably in the 200 million in sales. So you think about that, like the impact that Stephen's team is having is about quadruple what mine is, and it's still Still pretty cool. Still pretty cool to have a front row seat to see the ecosystem evolving, Stephen, to see the strategy evolving. And so I just want to ask you a broad question because we're going to take this in a couple different directions. Like when you think big picture about, the art and science of selling on Amazon, building a successful company, like where do you see the most change and what are you guys doing about it?
So it's getting harder. Amazon is entering the maturity phase, and so they're putting up more rules. They're making it harder for sellers to enter into the space. They're making it harder on the current sellers in the space. They're pushing a few out. We're seeing, they push people out of Vendor Central. Seller Central is now where it's at. We're getting a lot of new tools in Seller Central. PPC costs are up. Some might see 100% up costs in the last, over the last 6 years, give or take. And the sophistication that we saw the aggregators that we thought that they would bring to the table, but failed at and went bankrupt,
Right.
which Tyler and I were arguably one of the first on the internet to call that, by the way.
True.
Well,
True.
there's video clips on YouTube where me and Tyler, like before anybody even knew what an aggregator was, we were saying, what the heck is this? They're going to fail. Here's why. And so, we might've been prophets. That doesn't mean we profited from it. Right? Like there was no way to hedge, no way to like bet against the house on that one that I was aware of. But we saw it coming. We knew what was going to happen. They failed because they didn't have tenacity and grit. They freaking stocked out of their best sellers, all that stuff. So people kind of know about that. I know people are tired of hearing about ag. So that'll be my last comment on that. But what I will say is that I structurally think that the choice that I made as an agency to stick to the basics has really paid off for me. So a lot of tech firms or softwares come and go because they marry themselves to a two-step URL and it gets banned, or they marry themselves to incentivized reviews and that gets banned. Or they say, hey, put product inserts where you ask for a review and give them a gift, and that gets banned, and then everybody has to send their inventory up. Or the drop shipping guys that get banned, or the passive income guys that end up in court. Like all of these get rich quick models have failed. And MAG has always preached basics. We've always shared our trade secrets. And so as an agency, that position has been defensible. So I've been really grateful to see that work out for me. So when I say basics, here's the things that I mean. Anything that grows traffic in the form of PPC, SEO, and CTR, click-through rate. And then second, the conversion improvements that come from design and merchandising and troubleshooting. So those two components are the growth 1-2 punches. I just started doing some Muay Thai boxing and jiu-jitsu, and I got to tell you, 1-2 is like ingrained into my head. So 1, traffic, 2, conversion, just over and over and over again. And I can win a fight just using those 1-2 punches. I don't need my 3 hook. I don't need my uppercuts. Those basics are enough. So that's what I've seen us succeed at. Now, we've also seen that Amazon, who had former enemies in Shopify and Facebook, become friendly, because the enemy of my enemy is now my friend. And their enemy is Temu. Their enemy is TikTok, and basically these Chinese conglomerates. And I think Amazon's a monopoly. I think it's beneficial to the consumer in most regards. A monopoly that does good things for society is generally still good. But there are many things that a monopoly inevitably does that causes its own destruction. They take advantage of people. And in this case, it's sellers. And so sellers, I have more churn on sellers giving up on Amazon or running out of money than I have anything else. And so, if you look at the books of sellers all the time, we've had mutual clients in the past who are no longer in business today. That's right. So if we look back, 3-4 years ago, we had a mutual client. They raised money 2, maybe even 3 times, and they no longer own their company. They're out of business, right? And so we're seeing that the financial pressures are higher now today. Now, Amazon's still worth doing. I want to make that quick jest. There's a lot of reasons for that, but I also like to speak to the truths, the challenges, and the problems. And realistically, a 15% net margin, still doable on Amazon today and still respectable in almost any industry.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, you said so much there to unpack, Stephen. Man, so my nerd wants to get into aggregation theory and like the reality of the new monopoly being a demand side monopoly and how they're still disincentivized to create long-term customer value because they own the entire value chain, Google, Apple, Amazon, Meta, and others being the name of that. But I think that's probably too far down the Ben Thompson rabbit hole. I think where you talked about focusing on the basics versus like maybe like the hack, right? You go to your favorite session at a conference and someone says, just do this two-step URL and then you'll be happy. And I think what I hear from you there in the midst of a lot of other stuff is just focusing on doing the little things well, building good products and not I mean, I guess, are you let me ask you this. This is a question. Like, are you a spend zero of your energy on hacks kind of guy, or you just put it in its proper spot, small percentage kind of guy? Like how do you advise brands in terms of find the latest,
Interesting.
greatest hack? Yeah.
Yeah. So I have what I call the main image hack. The
Okay.
only reason I label it that way is to get people to pay attention. But in reality, it's not a hack, it's an optimization, right?
Right.
Like, so just as a quick example, when we look at a main image for a product, and let's say, one of my favorite examples, and I could do some show and tell on this if you're interested, is a Happy Me journal. And when we took that business on, it was for a friend of mine, and I did it for free. And I said, hey, Nas, let me just fix your main image. And he's like,
Okay.
whatever, it's not going to make a difference. Nobody's going to care. And so we did that. And then all of a sudden it tripled his sales. And I was just like, whoa, that's really cool. He didn't even have A+ content up. He didn't have a lot of the other things that are super important to succeed. So, I'll briefly pull this on screen here with your permission. So if you want to share the screen there. So here is on the left, the before. And when I ask people, why would you buy this product? The typical answer I get is because it's yellow. Now, when I ask you though, Tyler, why would you buy the product on the right? Spout out first things that hit your head.
Yeah, I mean, it's very age specific. I like the cute artwork. I know what's in there. I think when I look at the left-hand side, I'm kind of not 100% sure what I'm buying. I know what I'm buying there. So, yeah, this is very cool.
So not only do we have the age, so we know it's for 6 to 12-year-olds. We know that the kids' continuation journal keyword is on there, and the artwork. And the artwork is usually the thing that people notice last. And I like that you said it first, because it's not just a blank journal. It's a fun journal with images to entice your young son to write in their journal. And so like, this is not a hack, but I call it the main image CTR hack because when I labeled it and when I branded it that, it took off. And so nobody knows me as the PPC guy, even though I probably have just as much PPC content out there as the other top 5 PPC gurus. But I am definitely known for being the CTR guy. And the reason for that is because I don't think I have a lot of unique perspective on PPC to offer. I think that the industry has set some standards that I fairly adopt and agree with. I might say something like, hey, I don't think PPC automation is where it's at today. I think you should do it manual. We took an account over just this past 10 days where a top 5 PPC software, which I will not name, which is, expensive. We took that account over and grew that account by 163% in 7 days at the same ACOS by taking over an account. And by the way, we're not, this wasn't a small account, right? Like they made 63K the week before we met, and then we grew them to $100 and some odd $1,000, $190, I think, $1,000, something like that, off the top of my head, the following week, just on PPC at the same ACOS. Right. And so I have very strong opinions about PPC techniques and strong opinions about all kinds of things. But the reason why I talk incessantly about CTR and click-through rate is because everybody's getting that one wrong. Right. And so next year, after I've convinced the market, and the market has now adopted it. Now, if you go on LinkedIn today, you'll see like 4 different people talking about CTR, and they're using my same message. One really powerful influencer took my exact post, ran it through AI, and said, make this rewrite this. It was my exact messaging, just rewrote it and posted it. And I was like, come on, man, come on. And,
So I want to lean into CTR a little bit here. So you're the CTR guy. This has a massive impact. Maybe this is a great time to ask the classic, like, what are people getting wrong related to CTR? Give us some, like kind of like paint that dichotomy for me a little bit so that people can actually improve in this area of their business.
So just like that yellow journal image we looked at, they're not showing a keyword. They're not giving us a description of what the product is. They don't tell us who it's for. They don't give us any context. And in this day and age, when PPC costs are so high and Amazon is charging you to get even on page one, essentially, you have to demand that click or you're not going to get a sale. And so when I talk about my ICAP marketing funnel, impressions, clicks, add to carts, and purchases, and I was, first out to talk about the new brand analytics in Search Query Performance Report a couple of years ago. I immediately was like, man, this is the best data Amazon's ever given us. And so we were able to really articulate and go into the weeds to see like how powerful this is. We can now see down to the keyword level what my impression share is, what my click-through share is. And so when I identified that, I was like, oh my goodness, there's such an opportunity here, because now I can take the data that Amazon is giving me at my own keyword level. I could then put one of those keywords onto my main image and measure the impact. And we were seeing click-through rates double on some keywords and triple on some other ones. So for example, the Happy Me journal, we tripled his traffic in 7 days by just changing the main image. That tripling of traffic, by the way, tripled his sales in 7 days. Right. Okay, so a lot of times people think, oh, when you mess with the main image, you hurt the conversion rate. And that is completely false. And in fact, in most instances, it goes up. And so we're seeing that click-through rate is the most important thing to focus on in 2024 on Amazon, because it's the freaking easiest. It's the watermelon lowest hanging fruit, and it has a massive impact. So low effort, high return. That's what finance guys talk about all day long, right?
I mean,
always focus on that.
Oh yeah. When you name a podcast return on podcast, you love stuff like that, right? The ROI kind of mantra. So, okay. So, and this is for me as like more of a finance guy, less ops, less Amazon savvy. You've described a couple things that seem like they're very specifically related to the main image. Is that kind of the main, is just ignorant question here. Is that when you say improving your CTR, is it kind of all about that main image, or are there other tactics or areas you're focused on? Okay.
It really is all about the main image, because the only other things that affect click-through rate are harder to do or harder to swallow. So the harder to do, if you get a bestseller badge, obviously your click-through rate is going to go up, right? Sure. Amazon's choice, maybe sometimes, but like your review count, you can't control that. So why talk about it? Right? You just need orders to get reviews. There's no review generation strategies that work in 2024, right? When we look at back in the day when Seller Labs first came out with, their email automation, heck yeah, back then review gen was all about the blaze. But today, not so much, right? Like everybody's opted out. You can't even email your customers. Just none of those programs work. So when we look at, structurally speaking, like where should you focus and spend your time, you could spend 1 to 10 hours on your main image and double your sales. Name another tactic on Amazon where that is true. And then the last thing that's in your control but harder to swallow is price. If you lower your price 50%, I guarantee you your click-through rate will double, but that doesn't necessarily come out as sustainable. Now, should you do it on occasion to get a boosting rate? Absolutely. And I have a lot of pricing strategies that I advocate for. I believe in dynamic pricing. You've probably had Chad Rubin on the podcast where he has a whole business model on dynamic pricing.
Yes.
And so when you keep things static, it's worse on Amazon. So just like you wouldn't want to keep your price static, you wouldn't want to keep your PPC campaign static, right? You wouldn't want to change bit. You need to go in and optimize. You wouldn't set up a $10,000 PPC campaign and then not go back and optimize it. The same can be said about SEO. It's not set and forget it. So I've launched 4 phases of SEO, been public with my plan. It's all about indexing, then ranking, then market share. And we have all of these structured plays that we run. So in my brand manager playbook, we have 75 different plays. We give it to the brand manager. To use an NFL or a football metaphor, Our brand managers are like the quarterback. I'm the general manager. The directors are like the coaches. So we build these plays. We give it to the quarterback and say, run these plays. We don't know which play is going to work on the field at any given time. We have a general sense or a general idea, and if you need to call a timeout to talk to the coach, Mr. Quarterback, go ahead. But we trust you. Then on the quarterback, he's got a project manager. He's got a lineman to protect him with defense. We've got specialists and troubleshooters, a designer, and a PPC guy, and anything else that's required to sell on Amazon. And so that's like the structured team that's required to do well on Amazon today. And this is why the agency model is solvent, because Amazon doesn't care about the seller. So somebody has to. So you pay me to care about you as a seller, and then I bring a team aspect, and then we go win the Super Bowl for you.
I love it. Hey, you mentioned pricing. I do think this is such a powerful concept. If we think about Return on Podcast being the intersection of e-commerce and investing, your pricing strategy is a core part of that strategy. And you mentioned Chad. I did have Chad really recently, actually, on this show, and we were discussing. He kind of invented a new KPI, and he calls it POAS instead of ROAS. Right? This idea of he wants to measure the profit impact. So it's almost like you remove organic sales from the equation, and I want to know if my PPC is profitable just on the ad sales. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't want to get in the math here, but like, here's my question, because this is where I've been debating back and forth as a CFO. All right, there's two lines of thought here. One is I get enough organic juice or benefit to my listing and my brand that it's okay to use advertising as a loss leader for certain products to get them to rank or to do other things. And there's another, and maybe who would fall into that camp would also be maybe like another friend of mine, Destiny, who talks about if you're actually building a brand, you're going to invest in marketing beyond just I got a positive ROI on this dollar of PPC. So that's one side of the camp. The other side of the camp is very like, no. We need to make sure we stop losing money on PPC with Amazon. We need to be laser focused on Chad's KPI POAS so that we weed out products that are losing money every time we spend $1 in PPC. Do you have any thoughts?
I would say those are all competing frameworks.
Yeah. Okay. So speak to that a little bit. Tell me what your thoughts are on those areas.
So one of the things that I think naturally born leaders do is they take complicated subject matter and they simplify it down. And the people that are really good at that tend to be the smartest people, the best leaders, the most successful in business. And so I look at a lot of strategies every day, all day long. I look at strategies. And what I always come back to time and time again is the KISS model. Keep it simple, stupid. And so that's why I structurally boil everything down to traffic and conversion. I look at a model like Chad's. I love Chad as a person, but I think his model is too complicated, right? If I asked you to tell me in one sentence, what does Chad do? What would you say?
I think Prophecy uses a ton of complex data to help you do micro A/B testing of, I get your point. The point is you're doing very complicated pricing A/B testing, basically.
And I would simplify that down one layer further and say it's all about dynamic pricing. So the question then becomes, how often should I change my price? So if somebody today listening to this has never changed their price, their takeaway message should be change your price up or down once every 1 to 3 months. And that would improve your sales. And Chad would agree with that. And so would most Amazon experts. Okay, now the question then becomes, well, cool, where is my diminishing return? Should I change my price every day? Should I change it every hour? And so the complexity of the model then starts to layer in, then you need technology. But for most Amazon sellers, this is overwhelming, right? Like, how many tech tools do you have in your stack? How many actions should I take as a seller on a daily basis? And the answer is generally you have 1,000 things that you can do. There's only 2 or 3 that you really should do. So now that we've established that, and whether you agree with that or not, but I'm establishing that, then it becomes cool. Now, Stephen Pope, what are the 2 or 3 things that I should always focus on? And the answer to that is traffic and conversion. And CTR specifically is the easiest way to affect both of those, but mostly it's a traffic metric, but it still helps conversion. Because the people who have a 6-year-old that click on that Happy Me journal are 8 times more likely to buy that once they click it and show up to begin with. And so we know on Amazon that you need sales to get sales. We know that if you get a PPC sale, that you'll get 3 organic sales over 6 months from that PPC sale on average. Okay. So all of the things that you do to get additional sales are incremental, right?
Yep.
This is not true on a website. On a website, if you spend $100 on Google Ads, you'll get X dollars in return, hopefully $400 in return. Doesn't always work like that. But let's say you get a 4-to-1 ROAS. The second you turn off Google Ads, though, it's down to 0.
Right.
On Amazon, the reverse is true. When you spend $100 on Amazon PPC and you get your $400 back, hopefully with the 25% ACoS or 4-to-1 ROAS, which is really incredible in most categories, by the way.
Yep.
But let's say that's true. And then you turn off PPC, what happens? You still get $50 in sales. You still get $100 in sales. And the reason for that is because the algorithm rewards conversion. The algorithm rewards clicks. So, and the best part about this is that your ACoS goes down when your conversion goes up. Your ACoS goes down when your CTR goes up because Amazon rewards that engagement. This is not true about any other marketplace, any other platform in the world, to my knowledge, at this time. And so that's what's special about Amazon. This is why, I don't know, 80% of the brands that I work with are native-born Amazon brands. They only sell on Amazon. They launched on Amazon. They don't have any interest of doing anything else. I obviously want to go upstream and work with mid-market brands that have an omni-channel approach, but I like to appreciate that what Amazon has done or what it is. And once you understand or appreciate that, you can work within those confines, because you'll never have anybody come on your podcast, Tyler, and say, hey, I was born on Walmart.
Right.
That'll never happen. Why?
Never.
Because Walmart's not a marketplace. Walmart is a retail store that happens to have a website. And then they push their retail store product in the algorithm to the top, and then some, cursory secondary products show up at the bottom of results. So you'll never be able to born a child. You'll never be able to bear a new brand on Walmart. So that's what I like about Amazon. That's why I think the basics matter. And I think simplifying the model down to traffic and conversion is the way to go. And we can debate about what's the best traffic method or what's the best conversion method and which tool does this or does that. And a lot of people like data, and I'm a big fan of data, but the longer I've been doing this, the less data I look at, unless it's the brand analytics and the ICAP report. I freaking love that stuff. But secondary tools and methodologies, I've used less and less the more I've done this.
I love it. So double clicking on one of the things you said there, just to ask you. So I really appreciate you making the comment that on Amazon, because I don't know that I've heard anybody say this recently. The whole, hey, you get a sale on Amazon through PPC, you're going to get 3 additional sales over the next 6 months via the organic. Like that's an interesting anecdote. And so my question is it dangerous? I was talking to a guy yesterday who's a 7-figure Amazon native brand, like you described, who was celebrating the fact that he stopped one of his PPC campaigns that makes up something like 10% of his total ad budget, and he didn't see a dip in sales. How do you view doing experiments to maybe the question is, how do you know if you're wasting money on PPC versus just kind of prioritizing the immediate profit and you're going to see some harm down the line? Like, how do you manage that dynamic?
So the bad news is everybody is wasting money on a PPC.
Right.
The problem is, and this is a marketing conundrum that has potentially always existed in marketing, is that half your budget is being wasted. The problem is you just don't know which half, and you don't know which half is the bad half. Now in Amazon PPC, it's not that bad, right? Like there are things that you can go in and do. Like here's an action item that this can reach the barrier of 2 or 3 things that you do today if you're a seller listening to this. And that is, if you haven't added negations to your auto and broad match campaigns in the last 7 days, you are throwing money out the door. Broad and auto campaigns are the lowest ACoS campaigns when managed properly. Full stop. So a lot of people over-index on exact match. They overpay. Now, if everybody's paying for the same bid, the same keyword, what happens? Bids go up. So if you spend money on broad and auto, which is under indexed, you're going to have a lower ACoS. Now, the challenge here, the trade-off, is you need to go in and add negations. So if you're a lazy PPC manager and you don't want to go in and manage stuff, just set up exact campaigns and piss your money away and walk away. But if you're an optimizer and you spend 4 hours a week touching your campaigns minimum, then go in and add broad and auto campaigns and add negations over time. There's keyword discovery. Never negate a good keyword is one of the mantras that I have. So don't like promote it from broad over to exact. Leave it alone in broad match campaigns. And I know we're going super deep on this particular articulation, but my point is that there are many things that you can do to limit wasted ad spend on PPC that doesn't require an all or nothing methodology. And I think all or nothing methodologies are scary because they're so damaging if something goes wrong. And so it's better to use, like the 3 to 5% optimization techniques on a daily basis. It's safer. It's going to have less trade-off, and you can still get to the same end result. It just takes 2 weeks.
That's so good. Well, hey, so as we get close to landing this episode, then you just made the comment, hey, let's try to put 2 or 3 things together that are action steps. Early on in the show, you talked about correcting your main image, prioritizing CTR, adding keywords, making sure that people know what the product is from the main image. You just mentioned making sure that at least once a week you're adding negations to your broad and auto campaigns. Is there a third, or is there anything else you'd say if you had to put your to-do list today? Make sure this is on it.
Buy a year of stock. Now, most people, when they hear that, choke because they're like, finance, right? Yep. So if your business is not in a place where you can support buying an annual supply of your inventory, then I think you should look hard in the mirror and figure out how to solve for that, because you can't 10x your company if you don't have a year's supply of inventory. You can't even 2x it because you run out of supply in 6 months, right? And that's too tight. And so if your product's not good enough to buy your supply of inventory, you have a whole different sourcing problem. So I think buying a year's supply of inventory also has some other tertiary benefits, including inflation protection, and just the comfort of the fact that there's no such thing as just-in-time supply chain management in 2024, right? Like that got destroyed during the COVID era. So I would say if you manage your inventory well, you are going to beat 25% of your competitors just by default. The number one commandment on Amazon is never go out of stock. And the second commandment is like the first. No, seriously, never go out of stock. Because if you go out of stock, you damage your listing. You lose the honeymoon period. You have to reinvigorate the listing. Your ACoS will spike when you come back in stock, and it's a mess. So I think that's the other big takeaway is, and as a finance guy, you're always looking at like, hey, here's what inventory we forecast for you and what you need to prepare to buy. And by the way, you don't have enough cash to do that. And here's what you should change, right? And I'm sure you have those conversations all the time. So your supply of inventory, add weekly negations, and upgrade your main image. Best things you can do for your Amazon business in 2024. No question.
Love it. That's so good. And I think the hidden cost that CFO boys like me miss and that you just mentioned is we're really good at optimizing for return on capital and trying to have as much cash flow as possible. But there's a hidden hard cost to stocking out that you mentioned there that we need to stop ignoring. And I coach my clients a lot to try to just as viciously as you can negotiate your terms for your inventory. You're going to have to dust off the passport, go drink sake and kiss babies and do the whole thing and like make friends, like build partnerships. But I think you bring up a point that I'm going to try to integrate more often, which is I can ask for great payment terms, but I may want to offer in exchange for that the ability to go ahead and buy more inventory. I think you can kind of have your cake and eat it too. I think you can get better payment terms to make your cash go longer. And then, it's going to be a long time before you hear Tyler say, let's have a year's worth of inventory on the balance sheet. I'm not quite there, but the philosophy that you're talking about, the cost, the opportunity cost of stocking out is huge. I hear you. Now here's my question. Actually, here's the question I would have for you, because most of our clients have a year's worth of their really shitty products. And then it's their heroes that they stock out of carefully. And it's that's the worst case scenario. Say it again.
That's the worst case scenario. And can you tell the difference? Yes. Past does predict future on this very question, because if you have a product that's churning 1,000 units, you should buy 12,000 units. If you have a product that's churning 5 units, I might only buy 100 or 200 units on that one, right? Yeah. And so what happens is that somebody gets really excited. Oh, I'm launching the new color. My original color was black and I'm launching the red. I'm going to buy the same number of red as I did black. And then what happens? They sell 10% of the red of what the black sold. And then that's where it becomes dead inventory. And so I'm not a fan of color variation expansion. I think the KISS model solves this as well. Ford said it best when he said you can have any color you like as long as it's black. And instead of launching another color variation, you need to launch a full brand new accessory, full new brand product, or extension, because you're not going to grow your brand by launching a color variation. I would be hard pressed to hear a single story where somebody comes on and says, I doubled my brand because I added a color variation. That is not a 10X activity. I'm currently reading 10X as a book, and I highly recommend it. Definitely going to put it on my top 10 books of the year in 2024. My full list of books, if you're curious, of every year, myamazonguy.com/books. And I find myself frequently reading 1 or 2 audibles a week as I go hike in the forest and do my thing to try and stay physically fit. But I'm in the best shape of my life. I started doing jujitsu. I've got Muay Thai boxing, and I couldn't be happier. Father of 5, I like to think everything in my life can be prosperous, not just wealth. I think health, family, spirit, emotion, all of that can all be prosperous. And if you're an entrepreneur listening to this, I think you should do the same thing, right? Like, I think that if you're just trying to go for growth at the cost of any of the other buckets, then what's the point? You're just going to be trading one bucket for another. So if you focus on all of them as a concept, you'll make way better decisions.
Love it. So guys, Stephen Pope, my Amazon guy, myamazonguy.com. Stephen, we're going to have a bunch of your links and stuff in the show notes. We're going to make sure people can easily find out more about you, but you're always doing something in the content world that generates a ton of value. Normally, in my opinion, either not charging enough for that value, or you just do a lot for the community. What's current right now with My Amazon Guy that the audience should be aware of?
I currently spend $29,000 a month on my social media team. And that should tell you I'm putting out at least $250,000 in value a year in content. So if you're not following me on YouTube or LinkedIn, I have 9 video editors on staff. I have a YouTube manager. I've got 3 social media specialists. I hired a producer from the news industry. Nice. We are editing our content and putting up some massively valuable things. I hope you decide to follow us and engage us, or ask me an Amazon question sometime. I firmly believe it's all of us against Amazon. As case in point, Tyler, if you wouldn't mind, hold your t-shirt up. I gave Tyler a t-shirt a couple years ago. He still has it. Thank you for being a MAG follower. And the t-shirt's really comfortable, isn't it?
It's a great t-shirt, killer t-shirt. Sorry you guys don't have one. That's got to be hard to hear. But yeah, Stephen, you're amazing, dude. I love getting to reconnect with you. Again, we'll make sure people have links. I do highly recommend, and it's not even often, guys, when I'm having guests here that I'll recommend someone else's YouTube page, but Stephen's is amazing. Go to the My Amazon Guy YouTube page. There's so much great content. If you want to know exactly how Stephen and his team do things the right way, you can find it there. Stephen, thanks again for joining Return Podcast. Any final thoughts here before we close up?
Yeah, obviously those people that are listening to you are probably checking you out. I fully endorse Tyler and Seller Accountants to help you guys out on your business. We have had mutual clients. We have sent clients over to Tyler. Tyler has sent me clients. He's one of the good guys in the space. Please check him out. So if you were waiting for that one little nudge to give Tyler a call, make that today, guys. Thanks for having me on, Sally.
Thanks, Pope. And guys, listen, you've made it 37 minutes into a podcast. We appreciate it. We hope that something that we said today adds value to your life and your business. I agree with every word that Stephen said there at the end about we've got to focus on all the areas of our life, and we can be prosperous in them all. So until next week, hope you guys kill it. Take care. Cheers.